either live by the gun or you die by the sword.
Welcome to The Good, the Bad, and the Weird Shorts. I'm Nico.
And I'm Chris.
And today we are continuing the spooky season again. We decided that because we were already covering the first Silent Hill.
Yep.
And the second one 100% did not deserve a deep dive in the least.
Nope, really doesn't.
We decided to do Silent Hill Revelation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not the worst thing I've watched this year.
Same, but
But that's not a compliment.
No, not at all.
No.
I mean, so I remember when this movie first came out, I was curious and interested because at this point I had seen the first Silent Hill.
Same.
As most of us had, because there was like a, 6-year gap between the two?
And there's a good bit of hype for this one.
Yeah.
Like, I remember a couple of, commercials for it and people being really into, the whole, oh, it's gonna be another one, the first one was so good, because by this point a lot of us had forgotten our gripes with the first one.
Yeah, or the fans who were still butthurt over the first one, or the game fans who were hurt over the first one, were like, oh, this one looks more so like the third game.
Which, to be fair, is, aesthetically the more pleasing game.
Okay, so I specifically haven't played 3 because I didn't beat 1, and 3 is a continuation.
Yes, it is.
So
I think if you were, especially at this point, if you were really into the games, 1 had a good story, but it's PlayStation graphics. We were all in the same boat of they did what they could, but wasn't how I imagined it. But the third game, we can actually see what's going on.
Yeah,
so people were like, "Oh, this is gonna be really good."
Yeah, so I mean, it was there. There probably was hype behind it. I mean, I don't remember 100% because that was about the time I was moving to Lincoln, so I was more focused on other stuff.
I will say this came out, and I remember there being hype, but there wasn't a ton of hype. Just because I think this came out around the same time as a couple other movies that also had a lot of hype that also disappointed people a lot. So
Resident Evil by this point had done its 20th sequel that was dog shit again.
There was just quite a few that we had all endured. And so people were excited, but I don't think people were lining up at the door, if I remember right.
Yeah.
We were gonna watch it, but it also said on the movie poster in 3D, and we all know how we feel about that.
Yeah, and I mean, that was kind of in that portion of where, 3D had come out. We had Alice in Wonderland and Avatar, and, both Avatars.
Yeah, and to be fair, it was kind of a weird spot, 2012, where, like you said, Avatar, Alice in Wonderland, people do remember those fondly. Some of us didn't fully enjoy it, but there was this fake craze going on of well, I just get car sick.
Yeah.
It was I said that about all of them. Now I just realize I don't like it. It just looks bad. I do get car sick, but no, I just didn't like how it looked.
I do get sick on them, so I genuinely have a hard time watching 3D movies.
And I remember this was kind of the phase where a lot more people were being open about either not liking it or It physically made you ill.
It wasn't worth the extra $6 or something at the time to actually go and watch.
And I remember the tickets for these were, $6 was a lot back then for, a movie ticket. Because, it was already expensive.
Yeah, if you were going to, a late night showing without a military discount, you were looking at $20-some for a ticket at times, and it's just no.
I remember that was the whole outing with my friends, and we weren't buying popcorn or drinks, we were smuggling that shit in.
Yeah, and most of us who had gotten over the 3D of the 3DS were this is stupid, we're not.
Yeah, but at the same time, a lot of us, we were still biting the whole gimmick of 3D, because I could see how the appeal of 3D with this slasher horror flick. Having a big blade coming at you at the screen sounds cool.
Yeah.
We were all still in the mindset of okay, maybe. We hadn't reached our now crusty level of 3D bias.
You weren't like me, who was totally done with 3D movies after the first, 1 or 2 he saw.
No, I still had a little bit of, maybe it'll be like Alice in Wonderland again, because I enjoyed Alice in Wonderland's 3D. I didn't think it, there was a couple scenes that were too much, but for the most part, it was environmental. which I liked because it reminded me of Avatar, and I liked the 3D. I didn't, but so like I was hopeful. I could finally find one I liked because I had friends who loved it, and I wanted to love it.
Yeah, I remember the very last 3D movie I saw, and this isn't the biggest gripe about this movie.
No, because we watched it in 2D.
I always hate whenever movies cater to 3D to begin with, but like my last straw was I went to go see The Last Airbender.
Oh, I am so sorry.
My buddy in theaters, and he was so hyped. He's like, dude, let's watch it in 3D. And it's like, no, it's going to be awful. And he's like, come on, man. And I'm like, all right, fine. I caved, and I'll watch. And that's the last, scratch that. That is not the last one I saw in 3D in theaters. It's the last one I paid for.
Uh-huh. There we go.
Well, because I got to go see actually, the last one I saw was kind of a dog shit movie too, but the Star Wars trilogy will be saved for another
Yes, it
day.
will.
But
yeah, there wasn't just enough excitement around this for people to be like, this is gonna be good. We went in with too high expectations.
I agree. I did kind of go in with a little hopeful expectations because at this point I had seen almost all the Resident Evils up at that point, and they had gone downhill. So like, and this is at that era where like video game movies had that hype. Yeah, like, and then there was the drop down again where they were like, people weren't looking forward to them like they kind of are nowadays.
Yeah. What people weren't ready for with this movie was the terrible working of this like stories together.
Well, yeah, and I think that's part of it too, is it tried, for me, it fell into the same shit Resident Evil did. Yeah. Because, so, this one, they had a retcon back in everything that happened in the movie before, basically, and try and force it to match what the games were instead of, like,
just
letting it be and continuing something a little different, or, like, being... It doesn't feel like a true sequel. It feels like it took, okay, that happened in that movie. We're just going to throw some stuff in here this way.
Yeah, and especially since we watched them back to back pretty much. Yeah. It now is like blaringly obvious how poorly the continuation was thought of. Because like I'm all for a full reworking in your second one. Yeah. Like, that doesn't bother me. I'm also okay with, like, oh, well, yeah, it's kind of loosely tied, but, like, not a lot. This one acknowledges the first one heavily. But also is like, oh, all of this that happened, just chuck that out the window.
Oh, yeah.
Like, not even, oh, we don't address it. Like, fully goes against it.
Yeah, no, it makes absolutely no sense to anything that happened in the first movie at all.
No. And then one of the biggest praises that a lot of people had for the first movie was the monsters were cool. And we got new monsters quite frequently. This one, I mean...
so I did some digging into this. This was part of the reason the last one took a bit of time, because this was while I was doing the creature research. The only ones really from the game are Pyramid Head. Yeah. And the nurses. Yes. And there is a nod to the armless man in the very beginning of the movie.
Yeah, but it's such a small nod.
And outside of that, all the other creatures in the movie, especially after doing all my digging into the original, they are original creatures, but I can't really find anything that ties them back to any part of the story, because we have a mannequin monster, and we have a second type of Pyramid Head, and then we have kind of what makes me think of, like, from BioShock. Yeah. The big sisters versus the big daddies.
Yeah, definitely.
So it's very much so like that, and it just doesn't fit.
Yeah, and don't be wrong, plastic monster concept, scary, but it doesn't feel like a Silent Hill monster. Like, it's not fleshy, it's not gooey, it's not like, wow, a depiction of our sin incarnate. It's just a bunch of mannequins put together. Yeah. And it feels like something out of Doctor Who.
Yeah, or something out, it feels more akin to like something from Devil May Cry for me.
Yeah, like it's definitely cool, it's definitely scary, it's just not, what's it doing in this world?
Yeah, it just doesn't have the same feeling. Because even then, like, everything about this movie is dumbed way the fuck down. Like, there's no real symbolism.
No.
Everyone is a dipshit in this movie.
And, like, don't get me wrong, I love the whole cult thing.
Mhm.
I'm all for more cults. And I would have been very happy if this had been, like, the end of the movie tries to make up at the very last second.
Yeah.
Another Silent Hill, a new cult because blah, blah, blah reasons. That would have been cool. But they didn't.
Yeah.
They went ahead and tied it to the first one, like, very directly and enforced it multiple times in the movie.
Because, okay, we haven't explained the basic of the plot.
No.
So basically what happens is, and this is the entire damn movie.
It really is.
Sharon, not Sharon, Rose from the beginning.
Yes.
Sends Sharon back to our world because she found half of a medallion. Her name is now Heather. She and her dad are Harry, she and her dad, Sean Bean, are being hunted, which, by the way, they all had to retcon their names back to what they are in the games, are being hunted by the cult. Dad gets captured, girl goes to find dad, shit happens, they try and come back, but dad decides not to come back to find Rose. That is the entire movie.
Yeah, that's the whole movie. It's not even the same cult, it's a new cult.
Yeah. It's not that, well, it is kind of the same cult, but it's like a spin-off, group who's interpreted the end of days differently than the first group. And we get, Dahlia in there for like
half a second. Just spout, like, she's not even spouting like weird, obscure nonsense like the first film where you're like, okay, breadcrumbs. Yeah. There's no breadcrumbs in this film. It is all laid out for you step by step.
Here's how lazy her character introduction into this movie was. Mm-hmm. In the only special features on the Silent Hill Revelation DVD, they specifically said they brought her back to have a quote-unquote familiar face in Silent Hill.
Which is hilarious because Sean Bean's in this movie.
And he's just as useless as before.
Yeah, exact same character.
That's actually the one concept they've carried over. The uselessness of all the male characters in the movie.
Which is true, but unfortunately, unlike the first one, where there was some room for play in interpretation, there was some room for you to,
There was heartfelt that they're trying, but they still can't do it.
This one, it just feels like there's only really two, arguably three female characters, but two of those people are the same people. Mm-hmm. And the other female lead, granted, is a cool monster, but that's like, she doesn't belong in this universe.
She's barely there too, and it's just revealed, like, they don't explain jack shit other than the fact that basically, the reason the creatures can come out whenever Heather's around is because she's tied to the darkness. It's some Kingdom Hearts fucking bullshit of
It is. It is very Kingdom Hearts bullshitty, but where Kingdom Hearts played more off of the fairy book good versus evil and had a really, hard line in the sand of, well, even the good person has bad in them and the bad person has good in them. There's that whole moral construct for, all, 120 billion side spin-off games that there are. This one plays really heavily on the idea that they have been fully split down the center. There is just the good one who is dumb as a brick, and there's just the goth one who is bad.
And who's now an adult, but isn't the goth one because she's actually the demon kind of bullshit, because... Remember, Alessa got her got her revenge.
Yeah, they completely ignore that.
Yeah, completely scarred up. There is nothing,
No.
It feels so...
empty.
Yeah, it feels like a generic horror flick, a really shitty Alice in Wonderland with a Silent Hill coat of paint.
Yes, it really does. And what's disappointing is, while Alice in Wonderland has been beat to fucking death.
Yeah.
The core concept of playing with dreams and reality is, still fun and can be interesting, and why it still has the cult following, even for the shitty spin-offs and remakes.
Yeah.
Whereas this one, unlike what the first one did, which is why it felt Alice in Wonderland-y with its play on reality and worlds and realms and potentially dreams and potentially purgatory and hell, this one doesn't even bother.
No, it's like they took it. It's like, okay, Silent Hill exists. this happens in it.
And it's not even like the first one where like Silent Hill exists, please don't go there, but it's also in different realms. This one's just like, yeah, Silent Hill is just a pit of hell. Yeah. Please don't go.
And at least the cryptic stuff in the original one had purpose to it. In this one, there's just random shit like the brethren in this one are like, oh yeah, they don't breathe the air of the darkness because it keeps them pure. And it's just like...
But they're the only ones who do that. Like, the head of their order doesn't do that.
No, exactly. And even then, like, it's used as a plot device just to, like...
Just to quickly kill them.
Yeah, exactly. And then on top of that, we both bitched about this part.
Yes, we have.
None of the characters act like they live in Silent Hill because... While one of the characters, Kit Harington, is being taken away to the mental asylum, which his uncle's in, which is the absolute worst use of Malcolm McDowell you ever have seen in a movie.
Which is disappointing because he's a good, scary bad guy. Like, his acting was good, but he was in the movie for, what, a minute?
Yeah, barely, before he transforms into a creature, too. But they wheel Kit Harington's character into a room full of nurses.
Yes. Scary, spooky.
And it's like, you guys...
And like, the people who are supposed to be in charge of him obviously know the rules of the nurse monsters. And then just don't obey those rules. Exactly.
And I mean, it's just... like I said, it is the dumbed down version. Like, it's even dumber than Resident Evil, the second Resident Evil movie. Yes. Because my biggest complaint with the second Resident Evil movie was... People saw the first one and they're like, it was fine, but it wasn't fully Resident Evil. And so what they did is they're like, well, we got to jerk off the fans a little bit, so we're going to throw in a bunch of characters from it. Oh, they're in the world now.
Yeah. I would have been happy with more monsters from the game, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Because the other thing that happened is in the first movie, we get a glimpse of Pyramid Head. Mm-hmm. And granted, as we discussed, Pyramid Head wasn't fully realized like the director and writers wanted.
Yeah.
But we do get a glimpse of him, and we see him as this god sort of monster. Like, he is a tier above all these other monsters. He only comes occasionally. The rules don't really seem to apply to him.
Yeah.
He's mysterious. And in this one, he's just a fucking bodyguard.
Yeah. Not even really a bodyguard, because the first time, well, yeah, actually no, the both times we see him, because he's a guard at the asylum.
Yeah.
And seems to operate on his own thing. Like, again, why do you have this asylum? And there's not even like a difference between like really the shadow and the night, or like the ashy world and the dark world of Silent Hill.
No, we've condensed down to 2 worlds instead of 4.
Yeah, and because it's so from the beginning of the movie, Heather's either in the real world or Silent Hill's breaking through, or she's in the ashy world for a fraction of a second, just to have a cool practical effect shot of her running down away from the square as everything turns. Yeah, and then it's magically gray afterwards.
Yeah, like, there's not a sense of forbidding doom. There's not there's no clock ticking like in the first one. Granted, the first one felt more like how the game's clock is ticking, where it's kind of this like not a physical like, oh my gosh, you got to be here by this time, but like something is coming.
Yeah,
there's no pressure in this game.
No, and I think part of that too is in the first one. What happens with Alessa and the demon is that she's trying to end things. The reason she brought Rose and little girl Sharon there was to actually like end things, like bring an end to it. And this one, and I think it ties in perfectly well with the towards the end of the game or end of the movie where they're in the carnival.
Yeah,
it's very much her like more of her play. It's like the playground for the depraved at this point.
Which, if they had left Demon as like a kid, I could have made the mental gymnastics, but they didn't. They went ahead and aged her up to be the same age as Sharon Child.
Yeah,
but like it
makes no fucking sense, because here's the thing. So like we said, it's not even Alessa. The demon just took the form of Alessa to be the symbol of like the Antichrist to the cult.
Yes.
In this one, again, she's just having the time of her life.
And the other gripe I have is a little bit specific, but like not too bad, I think, in my defense. So in the first one, we have a cult we don't know the full workings and religious moralities of this cult, but we don't need to because we've got enough background information, and it's clearly based in a super skewed version of Christianity.
Mm-hmm.
Great, I've got all the background knowledge I need. I probably don't have all the details on, like, how they work, what their laws are, mindset, that whole... But I have enough. We're witch-obsessed. Okay. This one, I have no idea what they believe.
Well, yeah, and I mean, because that's the thing is, like, we've gone from establishing, like, building up this mystery of this awful, horrible demon child.
Yes.
To, well, we know she exists. There's Pyramid Head. Now what from here?
Yeah.
Again, it is such a hollow movie.
It really is, and even if you go into this movie just hoping to have a fun, easy watch, scary-ish movie, the amount of dialogue that is constantly hammering home, like literally everything the characters are doing, they dialogue.
Yeah.
Like the boyfriend interest character, Kit, he explains every single thing he does to the point where it's not even a surprise that he's part of the cult. You're like, of course you are.
Yeah. It's like the one guy who, like, they have the little lead that, oh, maybe he's the mysterious man in the trench coat following. It pops up and he's dead in like the first 10 minutes of the movie. And it's just like, well, there's all your mystery gone. Now this one boy who all of a sudden is interested in the new girl, like following her home weird, and the rules don't seem to apply to him. They talk too freaking much. Never go to a second location.
No.
And what does she do?
She goes to like 6.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think that if this movie had a lot less dialogue, that would have fixed a lot for me. It still would have been bad.
Yeah.
The writing still would have been sloppy and lazy, and the monsters wouldn't have been scary, but at least I wouldn't know what's happening.
Yeah, so I think that they could have done something. One, for starters, I'm generally going to always hate 3D movies for the most part, just because...
The way they're shot looks so silly at
It's so stupid, because, like, there's parts of it where, like,
the entire fight scene at the end is solely for the 3D.
Yeah, exactly. And it doesn't make for a good fight scene. It's kind of like if you took the end of The Host, where he has like that very anime, like swinging of the metal pipe, stabbing the creature.
Very, very cool.
Very cool. And well shot too.
Yeah.
If you had tried making that 3D where like the blade or the pipe comes right in front of the camera kind of stuff.
Yeah. To get good, effective 3D, requires building your entire movie around getting those shots.
Yeah.
But having good, effective, fill in other things here requires those shots.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, horror and 3D movies, film-wise, don't usually overlap really well.
No.
You don't really want things in the middle of the screen for horror.
Yeah. Or even then, like, in anything else, like, when they do the 3D, it's done in a way that it makes it feel like it was an afterthought because it was trying to look cool.
Yeah, and the way that most of the lower budget, going to your standard movie theater 3D works, it visually doesn't do well with like a jump scare.
Yeah.
Because your brain doesn't have time to register that as 3D, you really need to have an object moving across a couple planes of fields.
Yeah. Well, and I also...
which makes for bad horror.
Yeah, and I also think part of, like, the best thing to bring up with this is that part of the reason it is the way it is because the director from the first one was not involved in this one at all.
No.
Instead, they brought in MJ Bassett to direct, write, and also it was written by Lornette Hadid.
Yeah.
Or Hadida?
Hadida?
But, yeah, and so, like, none of the people who are in love with the very first game were in love, or making it, and specifically the director from the first movie said, I apologize, I'm not saying his name because I forgot to look it up again. He said he wasn't going to be involved in it because right from the get-go, they were going to make it Resident Evil-fied, and and this is exactly issues with the movie as well, is he said Silent Hill is not an action horror movie, it is very much a psychological, slow-paced mystery movie.
Yeah, and like the first one had really good tiebacks to being a puzzle horror game.
Mm-hmm.
And granted, for someone who wasn't part of the movies, those scenes probably didn't necessarily read perfectly.
Yeah.
But like we talked about, that was part of just the bias of the director being like super into the games.
Yeah. Instead, we're given a MacGuffin in the movie where she has the half of a medallion and has to go and find the other medallion.
But she doesn't even really try. Like it doesn't feel like a puzzle horror where you're trying different things. You have to figure out where to go.
No.
She gets told from the beginning where to go.
Yeah, she's like, "Oh yeah, my uncle has it."
Okay,
oh yeah,
where's your uncle? Oh, in the asylum under the town. Great.
Good.
Like that's not how any of this works. And unfortunately, one of the other like downfalls to this one was the music from the first one was such a feature point.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot of long silences. The movie went from being very, very quiet to a couple of kind of loud screams, but for the most part, it was a fairly muted movie.
Yeah.
This one is just kind of constant, like a constant, like medium volume, which means that all of the good music that they did bring in from some of the games, you can't hear.
No.
So you don't recognize any of it. You can't really like play back any of it in your head. And then the pop songs that are picked don't emphasize anything like Johnny Cash's Ring of Fire, which was the only one in the movie from the first one.
Yeah, and honestly, like, cause like, what was it? You were telling me earlier today, that your husband was so disappointed in this one. Like, he was okay with the first movie.
Yeah, like it's not his genre, it's not his type of scary, but he at least liked the first one. He didn't even bother watching this one. Like, he sat on the couch, but he scrolled on his phone for the whole thing.
Yeah, I don't blame him. And I'm sure he probably had a better time.
Oh, I have no doubt.
It was...
The other quarrel I have is in the first one, there was a lot of delicate detail put into character design, set and location design, and costume design. And there is none of that in this one.
Yeah, the only thing that has any kind of character to her costume is Heather.
Yeah, and the only reason it's there is because it's from the game.
Yeah, exactly. Everything else is just so... It's either from the game or it's pulled from the previous movie and then just modified slightly to make it try to fit the world. And it doesn't fit the world because it's not... It's just not worked into it. Because
and we don't have enough time with any of these characters to have that slow transition like we did in the first one, where we spent the entire movie slowly devolving color.
Yeah.
This one, we flash from gray to carnival reds and darks to asylum grays and greens. It
falls back into that very generic horror film with a coat of Silent Hill paint.
Which is disappointing because I like a generic horror film, but one of the things this didn't do well was the gore's not gory.
No.
There's no jump scares at all in this movie.
They attempted a couple, but it's specifically the mannequin scene where like the girl's pulled away and it's like, but we knew that was coming.
Yeah, it's a very set up shot. And we also don't keep any side characters freaking long enough around for us to be like, oh, maybe this side character will make it.
Yeah.
No, we know she's dead the moment she saves her.
Yeah. There's just nothing. All the charm is just drained away from this movie, and it is just fucking dog shit. Because even the first Pyramid Head we see in the movie isn't even the one from the first one.
No.
The one from the first one's been relegated to running a carnival merry-go-round.
Yeah, I mean...
Which, honestly, her dream from the merry-go-round was better than when she was actually on it.
Yeah. I feel like the only really good thing to come out of this movie is if you are a cosplayer, you get a lot of really good different angles of both Pyramid Head and the nurses. So if you were one of those people who's really dedicated to finding accurate canon detail to put into your costumes or your drawings or your art, this has potential for that.
Yeah.
But and unfortunately, the only reason those characters have any good detail in them is because they were already figured out from the first movie.
Yeah. Well, and part of that, too, is because the guy from the special... And here's why the actual practical effects on this movie are still really good.
Yeah.
Is because the guy who did the touch-up effects from the first movie came back and was hired to do all the effects for this movie. So
he at least knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
Which is good, because unfortunately, it looks fine.
Yeah. I mean,
visually, it looks fine.
Yeah, it's got the aesthetic, but that's it. Like, it's like, and
the only improvement from the first film to this film is the transition scene for going into what would have been like the hell version of Silent Hill in the first one, and is now just the one scene of Silent Hill melting.
Yeah.
That looks better.
Yeah, it looks better, and it's a cool shot too, because I would have been fine with it, but we don't, like I said earlier, there's no ebbing and flowing to the movie. It's just go, 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 go.
And it doesn't happen again. There's just kind of the one melting scene.
Yeah.
Unlike the first film where we had a few snippets, then we had several full melts, then we had it going back to normal.
Yeah.
This one doesn't bother, which is disappointing because whoever worked on the special effects and the CGI for this movie did a great job.
Yeah.
Visually looks great. Literally everything else with the movie, I don't care for.
Is absolute dog shit and can burn in the hells of Centralia.
Which is unfortunate because, like I've said many times, I love a garbage movie.
Yeah.
There's not a whole lot to like about this.
Yeah, I mean, you and I both love garbage movies, like the one that you haven't watched yet, Necropolis.
You have talked about it a lot.
It is complete garbage, but it has some cool and fun bits to it.
Well, and they thought up their own bits for it.
Yeah.
Like, there's their own ideas in this.
Yeah.
There's nothing original in this movie.
No, not at all. And that is the frustrating thing. And I mean, I'm also coming from, like I said in our last episode, the camp of, like, when I go see a video game adaptation, I want something that's different. I don't want a direct translation.
Yeah,
and
fair.
This one was trying to heavily be that translation while also having to deal with the movie that came before. It's like...
Sure, and to be honest with you, I don't mind a direct translation movie. One of my current favorite, like, obsessions right now is Way of the House Husband.
Yeah.
Which, if you know, all of them are exactly the same. The book, the TV show, the live action, they are all frame for frame the same thing. And I watched all of them multiple times because I'm easily entertained.
Yeah.
But this one doesn't bother to try and, like, rework itself as a shot-for-shot reinterpretation of the game. It just kind of loosely puts the game in there. It has all of the themes, it has the characters. It doesn't have any of the heart or soul, though.
I will argue it has none of the themes.
Yeah, by themes, I mean it's dark and spooky.
That's not a theme, that is an aesthetic.
That's true. It has the aesthetic of the game, and it has, if you want to call Pyramid Head a theme, it has Pyramid Head in it, but, like, not well.
No.
It's not a good representation of Pyramid Head.
Yeah, and it just... It falls short of everything the first one created.
Yeah.
All because they were trying to appeal to a larger market and to be Resident Evil, and we know exactly where that also has gone. Which
is disappointing because, honestly, if they had truly, like, ignored the first one and did as close as they could, like, frame for frame of the third game, it probably wouldn't have been that bad.
Yeah.
Visually, looks great. The actors did a fantastic job. Too much dialogue, but that's not their fault. Like, it has the ability, they just didn't put any of the effort in. It feels like a lazy cash grab.
Nope, that's exactly what it is. And, I mean, it is frustrating.
It is, because this was the one that had, at least for me, the most memorable monsters in it. And they didn't do anything. Even the fight scene was kind of boring to watch.
Yeah, it's like watching the very staged, like, theater production fighting.
Yeah.
Like, it's not even like roughly choreographed. Like, Power Rangers has better action than this.
Fact. Yes, it does. They at least can do a backflip.
Yeah, well, to be fair, it's also the Japanese who have been doing suit and costume fighting since Godzilla and are still doing it and doing it very, very well.
Yeah, that's true. And, I mean, I'd watch it if it was on TV at a hotel with only 3 channels. If that's a positive thing to say about this movie.
I still wouldn't. I'd find something better to do. I'd rather stare out a window watching the squirrels than watch this movie.
I understand fully.
Yeah, so I guess at the end of this one, Chris, do you recommend it?
No. Not even a little bit. I recommend watching gameplay of the games.
Yeah, I mean,
that would be more entertaining, and it would give you more information about Silent Hill than this movie ever will.
Yeah, and I mean, this is the one where I'm coming from not knowing the game at all, because I'm one of the few people who can avoid spoilers for a long time.
Yeah.
And have no desire to spoil it, because let's be honest, if this tells you anything, I didn't see the ending. I knew roughly how it ended. I avoided the ending of Final Fantasy X for well over a decade.
Wow, that's very impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I am the opposite. I want to know exactly what happens before I see a movie, and even then, I'm still disappointed in this movie.
Yeah, this movie is... It is probably... From what I've seen of the Super Mario Bros. Movie, I would rather watch that one over this one.
Same. I have seen the Super Mario Bros. Movie. I would happily watch that instead of this.
Yeah. Silent Hill Revelation is awful.
I would rather watch the 7th Barbie movie.
How many of those are there?
There's several. Like in, I think, 30-something.
Jesus.
Not sure. There might be only 20-something. But there's a lot.
Yeah. Honestly, I understand why we haven't seen an adaptation of Silent Hill. Well, one, Konami has done jack shit with this franchise, but also this movie killed any hype potentially of another one. That being said, I hope, because the director from the first one has mentioned that he wants to go and do an adaptation, do another movie.
And to be fair, like, I think the waters are stirring for a new adaptation of maybe not necessarily Silent Hill, but something in the same veins as Silent Hill.
Or a story from Silent Hill. Because honestly, probably the closest thing we have had to a Silent Hill movie is The Void.
The Void is a very good one. The thing that brings this into my head is there's so many people making very short shorts online that have the same aesthetic as Silent Hill, the same monster style, and I'm serious, they're like 10, 15 seconds long, scary shorts.
Yeah.
And they have this style, they have this aesthetic, and they're great. And there's so many people who are into those sort of things. There is the waters for another Silent Hill re-envisioning. Yeah. It just isn't going to look like this, I hope.
Here's my thoughts on this, and I think it'll resonate maybe a little bit, because where the good horror movies nowadays are truly coming from, granted I haven't seen the new Candyman, which I heard was great, but most of the good horror films are coming from independent studios like Spectravision and all these other like lower budget just fans who projects. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and like look at how great Mandy's been. Color Out of Space.
Oh yeah.
Psycho Goreman.
Yeah.
Like,
and the same thing's been true for games too. The amount of horror games from indie companies and solo developers has been through the roof.
Yeah.
So if we want another version of even just the stylings of the first Silent Hill, I think we need to look for someone smaller. Yeah,
we're gonna, again, it's going to have to be a passion project like the first movie was.
Definitely, and I would love to see it as a proper passion project and not tied to a big studio, because that was what hurt the first one.
Yes, no, I completely agree, and I think we are seeing a rise in that, especially with everyone moving out of California to make movies, which I know a lot of them are moving to Atlanta, which isn't any much different. It's still the same studios, just...
Rent's a little bit cheaper.
Yeah.
Not a lot, but a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's what's going to force these franchises to look elsewhere, or
sure.
The fans have gone elsewhere to better darker, spookier, bloodier pastures.
And to be very brutal, is we're also getting to a point where the fans can make their own movie.
Yeah.
And I think that scares some of the development studios, and that's why we've seen this weird crank out of re-envisioning things, because then they can say, like, no, we totally plan on doing that again.
Yeah.
At this point, I feel like the internet's our best call to action.
Yeah, and I mean, there is, like, I know Disney hopped on it with the What If.
Yeah.
Where I'm down for seeing alternate versions of movies.
Oh, definitely.
Alternate happenings. Like, again... I don't want a direct translation. Those are fine. They have their place, whatever.
Yeah.
But I want stories from these worlds. And so far, where I'm at in it, I'm only in the second one for Fear Street. I think we are seeing stuff like that, like Fear
Yeah.
Street, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. Like,
yeah, we're getting there, and I hope that Silent Hill comes back around because I like it. I like the concept.
yeah,
It's got a good mix between psychological horror, weird monsters, and cult.
yeah.
That is a strange little triangle that we don't usually get.
Mm-hmm.
I like it. I want more, but I want more from whoever makes those scary videos of like things running down the road at you in the middle of the night.
Yeah. Silent Hill
Mhm.
Revelations can burn for all I care.
Yeah, skip it. Watch literally anything else.
I completely agree. Even Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving is significantly better.
Yes.
Yeah.
If that's telling
That-
you anyone.
That one at least you can
or if
laugh
that's
at.
telling you anything.
Yes.
Me telling you anyone. Me speak good words.
Yeah, that one at least the side of the box is funny.
Yeah. Tits in the first 10 seconds.
Gobble gobble, motherfucker.
Yes. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
yeah. I have nothing else to say about Revelations. It can piss off.
Yep, same.
Yeah. So, anyway, this has been The Good, the Bad, and the Weird Shorts.
Thanks for listening.
Peace.